Before we even start, anti-aging is not my favorite word. I'm actually pro-aging, and I think potentially you might be too. We're not going to get out of this one anti-aging. We are getting older, whether you show your age. So what's really important is your biological age versus your chronological age. Look, I'm about to celebrate one of those big 0 birthdays, and the number doesn't bother me at all. In fact, the number feels like it doesn't belong to me because the way I used to think about that number, I'm sure I thought it was old at one point, and now it seems better and better all the time, right? But we've got another 40 years ahead of us if we play our cards right and want to. And that's what this is all about. I'm Debra Atkinson. I'm the founder of Flipping 50. And I'm going to explain to you some things about the way you're exercising to make sure that it's not aging you faster than you want to. It's in fact having a pro-aging impact on you. So you feel better, you look better, and you have the energy to do the things you want. Let's take a good look at what this is all about. So first of all, let's talk about this. And I'm going to show you the 10 tenets of Flipping 50. So for 10 years, over a decade, I put together 30 years of research experience working with individuals who were primarily midlife women who I was working with. I worked with all ages, both genders, and yet primarily it's women in midlife who reach out for help, who ask for help, and go to personal training before anybody else does. Here's what I learned from that, and that created the Flipping 50 10 tenets. Number one, we don't do the things we need to do necessarily based on the way our hormonal status is at midlife and beyond, and that gets us into trouble. It means the things we used to do will never work, they're not working, and you think you're doing something wrong because you're trying to exercise when you're 40 or 50 or 60 or 70 the way you did when you were 25 or 30. You don't have those hormones, and you're never going to again. You can be as fit, look as good, feel as good, and maybe better now as you did then, provided you don't try to exercise the way you did then. Let's agree on that. Okay, so I'm going to show you on one side the 10 tenets of Flipping 50. I'm going to show you where these things fall into place here if you're going through what do we need to do to change your exercise plan and program. One of the things we have to throw out is oxidative stress. We have to get rid of it. Oxidative stress happens all around us. It happens because of just like it sounds, the oxygen that we consume in our bodies actually can break down things like oxidative stress. It's hard on our eyes, but oxidative stress, if you're doing a lot of cardiovascular exercise over and above what is actually the good threshold for good health, the Goldilocks, enough but not too much, now you're in your sweet spot. But if you're doing too much, those long endurance exercisers, and look, I love it just as much as anyone else, but it's actually not more beneficial. There is a ROI, a threshold, a place of no return where you go beyond a certain point, you're not getting better results, and in fact, you start getting worse results from doing more. You've experienced this. If you've done any big workout, maybe you've had a huge weekend, a weekend warrior kind of thing, and the next few days you laid on the couch, you were extremely sore, going up and down stairs was really hard. That is actually something that's causing you to age. You're moving less well, not better. You're more achy, you're more tired, and you're what I call couch compensating. You're actually on the couch burning fewer calories, and your body has experienced some breakdown. Some of that you'll recover from over time. But if you've lost several days, we've actually lost the point of the exercise in the first place. Now, everybody wants to have maybe some epic moment. You or I want to go and hike the Grand Canyon, and that's pretty rigorous. The last 9 to 11 miles is uphill. Yeah, a lot of times in the heat of the day. That's going to be a little strenuous, and you're probably going to need to rest and recover for 2 or 3 days afterward. Some of you longer than that if you were doing something like that. But those kind of experiences may be worth it. You may say, this is a bucket list thing, I want to do this. And you have to realize there is a trade-off for everything that we do. And after 40, it's a bigger payoff. It's more expensive. But after 50, after 60 and 70, those payoffs are even more expensive. If you wanted to, say, be a triathlete in your 60s or your 70s, the events that are probably more conducive to you actually getting more fit, and instead of doing wear and tear, damage to your joints, are going to be those shorter duration events. Now, you may love it, but there's still got to be a degree of, there's a little more oxidation there. And you've got to decide, how do I want to live my life, and is it worth it to me to do some damage that I may not recoup after it's over? Things to think about. So for those of us that don't want to do those endurance events, what I want all of us to think is MVP. The goal really is to be healthy enough, right? To be healthy enough to do the things we love to do for as long as we love to do them. To be able to choose to, I want to go do this, and not be stopped by, oh, but my knees hurt, my lower back hurts, or I'm worried I won't make it, or have the stamina or the energy, or that I'll be totally toast afterward and won't be able to function. None of us wants to be stopped by choosing something we love because of those things. And there are ways to avoid it, but what you want to do when you're exercising is do the MVP, and it's not what you think. It's the minimum viable physical activity, the physical exercise that you can do so that you have the strength, you have the mobility, the movement through full range of motion, the stability, so you've got great balance, reaction skills, and you have the strength to handle it at your joints and your ligaments, whatever it is that you want to do. What is it that you can do so you get muscle strength, you get power, you get bone density benefits, you keep your mobility and your movement is comfortable all day, every day. You have what you want, and energy to expend doing any other thing. Exercise in the gym for 30 minutes or an hour should never be the thing that removes you from the game the rest of the day. Now, most of us are not awake 23 hours, so let's say it's the other 16 hours of the day. That exercise should not make you sit on the couch, sit on a chair, be too tired to go up and down stairs, or too sore. So we've got to think about, is it really working for you? Is it really making your life better, enhancing your life? And I think a lot of us think, or have been trained, conditioned to believe that we have to feel uncomfortable, that we should feel pain in the body because that's weakness leaving us. And that couldn't be further from the truth. Really, during exercise, you should feel pretty good. You should feel, when you're doing the stretches, when you're doing the yoga, that, yeah, I'm working some muscles that I haven't worked. I'm aware of some positions that I haven't held, maybe that are improving my posture overall, but you're not so sore you can't sit down or go up and down stairs. You're not suffering at your knee joints the following day. Going downhill or downstairs is when you'll notice it the most, because of exercise. Exercise should make those things better. And if not, we need to choose the how or what or when, or the how many, and or the mode of exercise that you might be doing so that you can feel better. End of story. So let's talk about the components that you're going to want. Number one is strength. So strength, so that we've got muscle that is engaged and active, and you've got, say you've got bicep muscle. It's attached across that elbow joint. It's attached across the shoulder joint. We want to work it throughout its full range of motion so that we've got strong and protected elbows. We've got strong and protected shoulders. We do have the biceps that'll help us pick up the groceries or the babies or the animals, carry them and do what we need to with them. Those are guarantees. We need strength. As we age, we're going to lose strength. We're going to lose muscle. And most importantly, we're going to lose a division of strength called power. So that's really kind of a subset of strength. But power means taking strength and adding a little bit of speed to it. We lose power that comes from fast twitch muscle fibers. So if you think of your body, you're made up of slower twitch muscle fibers, fast twitch muscle fibers. All of us have this. We've got a predominance, most of us, to slow twitch because that's how we move all day, every day. And when you start thinking about aging, many of you will settle for slowing down. You don't have to. And if you do the right things, you potentially won't. Not nearly as much as prior generations. Now, Age is something that's going to happen to us all. And look, if you take a 1910 car, and put it next to a 2024 car, which one's going to perform better? Of course, the brand new car. But your body still doesn't have to have the kind of wear and tear that we used to think was just a factor of aging if you take care of it really well. We can maintain some of the lubrication around those joints. We can strengthen the muscles surrounding the joint so the joint itself doesn't bear as much load. You're going to be a lot happier with your bones and your joints and your ligaments if that's the case. So let's focus on strength, but also doing it with power. A couple of ways you can get power. So we can take a movement that might be slow and controlled. That's going to get strength if we're using a load beyond our own body weight. However, if we want power, we're going to move with a little more explosiveness. On the lift, we're going to stop or decelerate under control, lower that weight back down, and then go again. So it's got a little burst of speed to it. Other ways that we get power in workouts, we could do a squat and jump, no body, just body weight, no extra weight, or we could do it with a weighted vest on after a period of time where we've adapted to that. We can also do power by taking a hold of some tools, medicine ball, and we could throw that ball down, we could slam it into the floor as hard as possible. That's power. We could take that ball and we could press it and try to shove it as far away from us as possible. We can do that forward, we can do that across our body. We can also simply take things up to down or down to up. But again, there's a quick component. It's not just taking the ball and moving up and down. There has to be a speed component. So you would take that ball and you would push down, or you would take that ball and you would lift up. And you can let go of it or hold on to it so that you can repeat it and not have to chase after it. All of those things are ways that you get power. There is some degree of explosiveness in the work you're doing. Standing on one leg, hopping forward, or jumping forward, but you're coming off the ground, that's a little more power. So think about how you're getting all of these components. Are they covered in your week? So in order to get it, it doesn't have to mean I have to have days when I do strength and then days when I do power. Power could be built in to the strength training you're doing, or could be built into the high intensity interval training you're doing, or on days you go for a walk. You're on purpose when you finish dedicating 2 to 3 minutes on the way back to doing some jumping, some hopping, if you're capable of doing that without injury. What's next? Okay, strength is number one. We don't want to lose that. Power goes underneath it, and sprinting is another one. Now, sprinting I want you to take with, it's up to you. So sprinting doesn't have to be on your feet and running toward a finish line. Sprinting could be on a bicycle, doing sprint interval training, super fast for 10, 15, 20, 30 seconds, and then complete recovery. Sprinting, so doesn't have to be any impact. You can sprint swimming. You can sprint on an elliptical, on a rowing machine. Totally up to you what mode you want to do. But the biggest point here is go super fast and enough so that you get breathless. Breathlessness is something that, especially for women, we want to elevate our VO2 max, because if you want to live long and you want to live strong and reverse your biological aging, what we want to make sure is that we've got a high level of cardiovascular fitness. And two of the things most related to your longevity, what I call your strongevity, is your grip strength, because it tells us your total body strength. It's correlated to that, and your VO2 max. Now, you can go into a lab, you can put on a very uncomfortable helmet, you can breathe in controlled air, expire out, we can measure your air and your milliliters of oxygen consumed per kilogram of body weight, and it's all very complicated and uncomfortable, and it'll cost you something. But we can also figure, if I'm getting breathless a couple times a week, I am probably increasing my VO2 max. But if I'm not doing that, things like simply going upstairs will start making you breathless. And if that's the case, it's partially due to the aging process, and mitochondria is not produced as rapidly or as just naturally as we age. We have to do some exercise in order to get that to happen. And there are some other supplements you can take, and if you're curious, ask me below and I'll tell you what I'm taking in order to help my mitochondria. But I want you to exercise for it. So strength training will help, but doing that high intensity interval training will also help your mitochondria and your VO2 max. Going for a walk, what we call lower level, kind of level 2 or zone 2 training, where you're very comfortable and you're going for a longer period of time, does not elevate your VO2 max. It's a great base, a great foundation of movement, but it does not elevate VO2 max. The same way, getting breathless, coming back and recovering completely, getting breathless, coming back and recovering completely will do for you. Okay, what's next? So we've talked strength, we've talked sprinting. You also want to get that, just that foundation. I referred to the zone 2 training, going for a walk. Here's what I call that. You may or may not be sweating. So if it's a hot day here in Phoenix and I go for a walk, I'm gonna sweat. But if I'm just going for a walk, and Moses down here is a 4-legged friend, he needs to go for a walk every day, but he likes to stop and smell the roses too. So I keep walking, and as long as he will come with me with a gentle tug, we're good to go. If I stopped too much, I wouldn't be getting zone 2 training. I need to be walking at a point where I know I can have a conversation. So now he's not a great conversationalist, so this is all in my head. But it's important that you feel like you're not getting breathless. It's not that place. It is not the place you took your heart rate to see if you were in the zone. It's not where you want to be. You want to be below that. Very comfortable. This is what I call almost your all-day pace. Zone 1 is zooming around your house, doing laundry. It's lower level than that. It's kind of a recovery day where you're simply busy, not exercising on purpose. Going for a walk in that zone 2 is, it's intentional. You're going for a walk, but you're not working so hard that you can't keep going. That is an important thing to do every single day. We are doing that in exchange for this. I'm sitting here even doing an exercise video. We sit here and we're in front of our computers and we're in front of our screens messaging people. We don't even go and walk and talk to them anymore. And you know, that's simply a factor of the life we live in. So we've got to have that exchange where there are times when you can go for a walk, and maybe you're doing something else, like you're listening to a webinar as opposed to sitting and watching it. You're on a phone call with someone. Obviously reception is going to be an issue, but you've got to think about, what could I be doing, or what am I doing where I could be walking? And a lot of times having a meeting, talking to your kids, your spouses, your partners, your friends, while you're walking, things come out that don't otherwise come out when you're sitting on the couch or across the table from them. So try it. So strength training with power as that component, sprinting or getting breathless in some way, making sure that you're sweating, you're getting that zone 2 walking, the movement in on a regular basis, not a daily effort. Strength training twice weekly, with one of those times, a third time, being something that is total body. A little bit lighter. You're not going heavy weights, as heavy as you possibly can, to muscle fatigue, but necessarily you might be doing a lot of one-legged work. So you're really challenging your body, but you can go less weight when you go one-legged. We also get a chance to look at, how's your right side to your left side? How's your balance? So it's not too far gone. Your dominant side is probably always going to be a little stronger, but it shouldn't be a lot stronger. And we can change that if it is, so that we keep your pelvis in alignment, your spine in alignment, and we don't start risking injury. So it's important that you look at some of those things, and we want that zone 2 training just as a base. So we pour back into all the sitting that you're doing and we get you moving. That also reduces cortisol. Now here's what a lot of people will say. That's a very valuable tool, they'll say, zone 2, because you're using more fat for fuel. That is hocus pocus. So here's the truth. If we really want energy expenditure, we want to burn more fat, we're going to do something higher intensity. So we burn more total calories and a smaller percent of fat for fuel at the moment. But if we take a really big number and we have a smaller percentage of it versus a really small number and a high percentage of that, we still win over here. And that's really what's happening when we look at going for a walk versus high intensity interval training. If the two activities were exactly the same length, we say we're going to do 30 minutes of this, 30 minutes of this, high intensity interval training will burn a small percent of fat for fuel, but it will burn a bigger number of calories because it's happening so much faster. However, don't let that fool you into thinking more or harder is always better, because this is where women get it wrong. We have to know that it's really important that we have to first remove all the roadblocks. For women, cortisol, the negative effects of the cortisol stress hormone in menopause when estrogen comes down is much greater. So sometimes women are doing all the things. They're going high intensity interval training, going to boot camps, they're working super hard in the strength training so much. They're elevating their cortisol again and again and again. And you know what cortisol will do for you? It will deposit fat around your belly. So if you're finding you've got pinch and inch and you've got muffin top and all the things, that is actually visceral belly fat that is deadly. It's not just unattractive and vain for us to want it to go away, but it's deadly if it's that woven in between your internal organs. We've got to do something about that. And some of the best things you can do about it are HIIT if you're not exhausted. However, also going for a walk removes the cortisol. So it takes that roadblock away. Now, if you are driving that red Ferrari, like you are the red Ferrari, you can actually drive it because you can. You've removed that cortisol from the picture. So now you can burn fat when you do that HIIT responsibly. 20 or 30 minutes, start to end, that's it. You go hard, we call it hit it and quit it. You're gonna get better results. But if you're tired all the time, hit it and quit it is not your game yet. You gotta restore before more. Number one, right? So make sure that you're doing the right thing at the right time. Okay, next, we're gonna come down to stretching, mobility. So stretching we used to refer to as we're gonna test your flexibility. Do you all remember that? Sit on the floor, reach and touch your toes. Silly test, really silly. And why is because, you know, number one, that sit and reach test didn't really look at a lot of things. Number one, your leg length from your ankle to your knee and your knee to your hip are very different than mine. And your arm length is very different than mine. And whether or not you have flexibility at your hip is not even what we're testing, but it's supposed to be. So what we'll look at is how much are you rounding your back and compromising your back, and we don't want that. Why would we ask you to do something that will compromise your back? But it's taken a really long time for people to figure out, the powers that be, that physical fitness testing is really not as good as it was cracked up to be. Ideally, we've thrown away sit-ups and we don't do them during workouts, so why would we test them as a measure of your core strength? We shouldn't, and we don't. But what's important is that you look at what we need is you to be able to go through your full range of motion. Can you move through your full range of motion with all joints, bringing one arm up and the other one up through your back? Can your fingers touch behind your back? If we do the other side, may not be quite as good, but ideally you're pretty close. So your fingers may be touching, they may be overlapping, there may be a big gap, and then we want to work on your shoulder mobility in that case. So there's things that we do want to look at, and we want to know you can move through your full range of motion. But we also want to do that, establish full range of motion before we start loading you with strength. So as much as we all want, I want metabolism, I want to boost my metabolism, and I'm worried about bone density. Yes, we want you to do strength training. However, we want to make sure that you've got good range of motion to move things fully with load. That's an important piece of stability. So we want to stretch, get the mobility, and the next is stability. That is the marriage of your strength with your flexibility or mobility. So we pull them together, and that equates to two things. Number one, balance. And most of us don't need balance when we're standing in a cool, calm, serene room, listening to an instructor say, breathe in, breathe out. It's not when we fall, is it? No. It's we fall when our hands are full, we're trying to shut the door with our hip, open it with this. We have the keys in our mouth, and somebody calls you from behind you, slip on a little bit of ice. That's when we fall. So we have to practice and look at, we need our strength with our mobility, and we probably need to be doing some movement that challenges our balance, not just statically looking at balance. So standing still in tree pose is a start. It's going to gain your confidence. It's going to strengthen the little muscles right around your ankle leading to your knee. Those peroneal muscles need to be woken up, and they're going to require a little stamina. But then you've got to be doing some exercises that are movement, displacing the center of gravity that for you is probably somewhere right above your belly button or your hips. And you need to take it off center and move back and forth while you're on one leg, or starting with two if you need a little more stability, so that we know that you can react and right yourself when you're put in that position where you've got something here and you're opening the door or shutting it against the wind and you're a little off balance. Those things are really important so that we don't risk falling. And if we get in a position where we slip, we slide on ice, we can right ourselves. That is a reaction skill, often called agility. So we need to do agility training. Now, you may not have thought of this, and it may not be anywhere right now in your workout, but it can very easily be, again, without adding time. Agility is moving your feet quickly. So if you are doing ballroom dancing and that's your jam, if you're doing some foxtrot or a 3-step, you're doing a quick step, and you are following with a partner, you're going to do some agility. You're not moving your feet always slowly in a waltz, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4. Likewise, if you're always only going for a walk, if you always sit down and you do the weights very slowly and controlled, we are not getting any agility there. We're not getting any power there. And we're missing out on the things that will be pro-aging for us. And if we use the word anti-aging, in this case, it's probably a good way to use it. So we need to make sure we get agility and we get power once we've got the foundational pieces there. So how can you get agility? I like using ladder drills. So you can literally buy a ladder, and if you are somebody who, this is fun, having a new tool gets fun. I've also had clients who put masking tape or duct tape down in their garage so that they've got a ladder there that they can't trip over. So there's no extra obstacle. You can also, I'm staring at my patio right behind you, and you can look at the squares or the lines on your patio or the planks, the 2x4s on your deck, and you can look at, I'm going to hop over and back on these, or I'm going to go shuffle, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, or I'm going to go in, out, in, out, and I'm going to do that down the end. There's so many things that you can do, but the answer really is quick steps, making yourself do them, or react to somebody else. So it's another way to do some agility and reaction skills. You can play catch with someone while the two of you stand as if you're on a balance beam. Throw to each other, be nice, and then throw to each other, don't be as nice. So I'm going to throw to you, only I'm going to throw it up here off your right shoulder. So you have to go like this without falling off the balance beam. And then I'm going to probably throw it down here, but I'm not going to tell you that. So you have to catch it in here, and then I'm going to throw it again, but I'm not telling you where I'm throwing it. That's really reaction skills and really agility. And then you're going to put your other foot forward and try that. So many different ways that you can try this. And if you want a cheat sheet, I want you to reach out. Let me know right here that you want one, and I will help you get that. And we're doing a masterclass in March. If you're watching this in real time in March of 2024, you can come to the masterclass and get a little bit more detail on what does this look like? How do I put it in my week? Because this may sound like a part-time job. It's not. It's actually a full-time job because it's yours and you have to have it in order to live really well. But remember, if you're going to add power, it can happen during your strength training workout. If you're going to add agility, it could happen during your high-intensity interval training workout. And those are short. You're going to go for a walk, and that should happen every day. But it can happen in 10 minutes whenever you have time. It can happen instead of walking. It could happen dancing around with 2 5-minute songs on your radio or your phone. play the ones you love, and just dance around and move and get the steps in. And those kinds of things are super easy. Your stretching, that should happen every day that you're moving, either before you go or after you go, or both. I prefer, if you're choosing one or the other, ease into the exercise that you're about to do with a lower level of exercise you're going to do, and stretch on the end when your body is overall warmer and you've already got your joints lubricated because they've been moving. You're going to benefit so much more from the stretching that you do. If you love yoga and you love Pilates, those are great for mobility as well. And yet, if you don't need to look for other ways to put things in that are time consuming. That's not the point. Make it easy to do. With stability, I talked about, yeah, we want to, a tree pose here and there is okay, but it's really not valuable. We need you to move that center of gravity off. You can build things like that into your warm-up. That's where they should be, or between sets of strength training exercise. So we're not adding a whole lot of time, 30 seconds to a minute each time. Super easy. So one of the things that I will often do is say I'm doing supersets of a chest press and a bent over row. In between, I will stand on one leg and do balance exercise, moving my leg in and out. Work on one side, work on the other side, and it's maybe 10 on each side. But now I've also put a little bit more time before I come back to that first exercise. I've given myself a little bit more recovery. That takes discipline. You're so tuned in to going from that to that to that to that to that with no rest. Occasionally, if you want to gain lean muscle mass as you're older, you're going to work a little heavier and a little harder, and that's going to require a little bit more rest and recovery in between. It's not hard, but there are a lot of things that we're juggling, right? So I'm going to do a quick recap. So in all of the things and the things that we want to make sure that we have in our typical week, we want strength training. Twice weekly, going heavy. A third time a week should be more of a functional workout, and that would include, I'm going to do yoga with my body weight for a day. So I'm doing one-legged things, I'm doing side, I'm doing some rotation in it. Full range of motion is amazing, and you're still stimulating the lean muscle because you're supporting your body weight while you're doing that. That also falls under, if you're doing yoga, you get some balance work in there as you move into and out of poses. You will get some rotation and mobility in there. You're covering and checking a lot of boxes with multitasking activities. Don't we love that? Okay, next up, you're gonna make sure that you are moving a little faster. And some days when you're strength training, if you wanna add power, lay down a base of strength first. No speed, slow and controlled. And then add later. On the pull, you're gonna lift a little faster. You're gonna slow that down, own it, and then slowly let it come back up. You're gonna also potentially think about jumping, hopping, side to side, adding a little power that way, using tools like a medicine ball and slamming them down as a part of your core work or in a part of a dynamic warm-up prior to your strength or to your HIIT workouts. Fantastic way to add that in. You're gonna make sure you get some sweating in that zone 2, just going for a walk. I'm super comfortable. I can breathe through my nose and my mouth. I'm not breathless. I don't have to stop. I can keep going as long as I want to. And you can break that into 10 minutes several times a day. You can do 30 or 45 minutes of a brisk walk all at once. What works for you? But don't let this happen. This cumulative effect of I did 45 yesterday, so I have to do at least that tomorrow. Actually, get a mix. Go shorter some days and faster. Go longer and slower some days. Do a hike, where you actually might stop and smell the roses someday. So mixing it up will actually use all of your energy systems and get you in far better condition than doing the same thing, same distance, same route, same intensity every day. Then you want to make sure you've got that stretching. So we've got the mobility at some point after an exercise. Every time you do something, stretch, get some mobility in. Dedicated mobility days for those of you that know you need it. You've got some limited mobility. That could be the difference between you feeling more comfortable during exercise and kind of suffering through it. And then there's stability. So it's balance is one way you hear this, but stability is really what we're talking about. So you're focused on your stability so that if somebody throws you into a position where you're in an imbalanced position, you are stable and you can catch yourself as something that probably women over 70 and 80 and in our 90s we're at biggest risk for falls because of instability. It's not necessarily quote unquote a lack of balance or ability to stand still on one leg. That's not when somebody falls. They fall when they catch their toe under the rug, they misjudge the size or the height of the step and catch their toe right here. That moment of, can you be stable right now by righting yourself with a quick reaction? So there's the agility, right? So stability is a measure of, yes, strength, mobility, and the ability to react quickly. So get those quick motions in, react to somebody else, play ball with somebody else, play pickleball, racquetball, tennis. Those things are all going to help you. So take a look at what do you have in your week right now, very consistently. Most likely you're covering a lot of those boxes. Where do you have less of something that you could easily slide that in, or maybe try a new activity that you haven't tried before that you may just love. So try not to add to a list of things that you don't like, but add things you need that you actually love and enjoy doing. Okay, ask away. Give me the questions down below.